Yesterday was International Women's Day. Mine was International Brainless Day. I turned the hazards on in my car, didn't know how to turn them off. Had a growth mindset session, had total success in technology. So when it happened, I was like, guys, I was like, everybody. I had a pretty good group last night. And I said, tell everybody you know that I had technology success. But then I left and went to go through the car wash, and it's like the one where you get your wheel in there and you put neutral, which makes me nervous. So I get in there and I'm, and get to the end and it says free vacuum and towel dry. So I go around and I'm kind of like, okay. And I realize I have to vacuum it, so I get out and I can't figure out how to turn the vacuum on. So I'm looking around and I'm seeing all these people successfully vacuuming their vehicle, but not me. And I'm just, I go up and I'm looking around. Sign right up there. So I look at the guy who comes over and he starts telling him, hi, I said, I just can't seem to run these vacuums here. And he said, do you see the sign? And I said, I do now. And it's a big green button. And
oh my
so
God.
it's been like tried to go to Dunkin' Donuts at Millard, went to the wrong door, and it's all under construction, the new Dunkin' Donuts. And so I was like, oh, I guess they're not open. And then I leave and I'm like, oh, there are people going through the drive-thru. They are open. I just went to the wrong door.
Well, I am in the midst of moving to a different apartment.
Yeah.
So, but it's like in the same building. So I have like my apartment is like on the basement floor, and then I'm like moving up a floor. Well, I had a bunch of my friends come over to help me move yesterday.
Oh, already?
And already, I'm like, I literally have my bed and my couch left, and then I have to clean. So it's like almost all done,
Wow.
which was awesome. They were like powerhouse. But one of my friends, my good friend Alex, she like knows me well, so she was trying to keep the things that, because my bed was downstairs, I was still gonna sleep in my old apartment. She was trying to keep the things that I would need in the morning to get ready, like in the basement apartment. Well, there were a lot of people, a lot of like hands, and so this morning I woke up and I don't have a cup to take my vitamins in the morning, but I have my vitamins. I have my toothbrush, but don't have my toothpaste, and don't have my floss down there. I have my makeup, but I don't have my deodorant. So I like do everything I possibly can in the basement, and then I run upstairs and then do my stuff upstairs. And then I realize, well, I left my computer bag and work stuff downstairs. So then I go downstairs. And then, so I'm like up and down and up and down.
Good thing it's close.
7 in the morning, yeah. It's a really good thing. It's like in the exact same building and like a half a floor
I
up.
can't remember if I read this or somebody told me this. The best advice on moving is to pack as if you're going on a weekend
like
trip.
an overnight.
Yeah.
I was planning on it, but then it was just all these people that just came, and I kept like most of my.
You're good
things.
with people just like moving your stuff.
Oh yeah.
Oh
And
man.
it's like almost the exact same layout, and so I was like, just find the things and put it in the same place upstairs, because it's like essentially the same layout. The kitchen's a little bit bigger, and then there are like hardwood floors, bathrooms updated, but the layout of the apartment is the exact same. And so I was just like, okay, this cabinet will be this cabinet upstairs,
So it's unloaded too.
Oh, it's all unloaded and everything.
Oh my goodness.
There are a few things that aren't, because like I like store some stuff under my bed, so that was kind of weird. And then my books, they got all out of order. That was the part where I was like, they're all in order. Like, what are you doing? So
See, that's what I do that's my everything. I need to put it away. I need to know where it goes, and so it's good that it's just one floor up and you can.
So yeah, thankfully I have enough. Like it worked out well.
Side note: did anybody identify what the stink in the fridge was? Is it my
No,
stuff?
not yet. Probably.
I typically don't put anything in the fridge. I just keep it in my own bag.
Yeah.
So that I do not do that, because I will forget it. Sorry, side note. I'm terribly distracted.
No, it's okay. Okay. One thing I wanted to bring up. I read an article that came out the other day that because of the ambiguity of generations, Pew decided to make a definitive list of where generations start and end, specifically millennials. So they published, based on their research, based on what was going on in culture and technology development, that the millennial generation starts with being born in 1981 and ends with 1996. That is what they definitively say is the millennial generation. Now that's one research entity, and so it might be different, but they're fairly reputable, they're national. They're some of the first people that started researching generations. So I thought that was very interesting.
It is.
Yeah, so because there's a lot of debate about those people that are born in the 80s that are like, I'm not a millennial, like what are you talking about? And so some people define that as like a subcategory of like pre-millennials, but within the millennial generation still.
Okay.
But so I had a very interesting conversation, which I wanted your thoughts on with Jen Benson, our development director. So she's my supervisor. She technically falls within the millennial generation. And so, so I told her this, and she was like, yeah, and gave me a high five. And I was like, that's not the reaction I was thinking they're gonna have. Like most people, when they hear they're millennial, they're like, what? I'm not a millennial. She was like, yeah. It's like, okay.
Unless you would like, I mean, I think after you get to the point of 35-ish, you want to be younger than you are. So,
I suppose.
That is interesting, because I think it's kind of like strengths. And I told somebody the other day, they were like, I just can't believe I don't have this in my top 5. And I said, if you really feel strongly about a strength and you want to own it, own it.
Own it.
I don't care if it's your 34. If you want to own it, own it. Seriously, if you love a strength and you want to own it, the biggest issue we have is ownership.
Yeah,
That is the greatest challenge, is ownership.
But I wouldn't advise anyone to take their 34th strength and own it, because there is something in how they're wired, the way the instrument is, which...
Agreed. But I just think ownership is the biggest struggle we have with mentors. Oh my gosh.
So like, for example, discipline is my 34th, and I would love to own discipline. I would be like, oh my goodness, wouldn't my life be awesome? And but would you advise me to own that?
Do you believe that
I
you
have
can own it?
Yeah, I believe I could own it.
See,
for sure.
I don't. I don't believe that I can own my
But it
button.
would
But
take...
if there was a strength that, the approach I'm taking with this is the ownership piece. If mentors could understand the value of how important it is that their ownership of their 5 or whatever it is, their ownership of strengths in general, because if they even give the slightest sort of, ooh, I don't really like that strength, it can really turn a student's opinion towards, I might not like my results. So I would say the same thing with generational. I cannot claim to be a millennial.
No.
But if I really, really wanted to own
Being a millennial?
me, I had
I suppose so.
someone tell me yesterday that I was kind of a hipster. And I said,
You are a little bit, but
nope.
but in a like mom-esque way.
See, okay, which does not go together.
But in your like alternative medicine, your spiritual practices, a lot of those things are very...
That is mega old soul, you guys.
I know, but it was old soul, and then like the
Young people made it
1950s
cool.
happened, and then like where we were like,
Now that's modern day hipster.
It's modern day hipster now to implement those like spiritual practices.
But I've kind of
Shopping
always
at
been
Trader
that way.
Joe's.
I know you're a hipster before hipster became a thing.
See, I feel like I should have been born in the 60s generation. That's my belief. So if I was to own a generation, I would like to be, just because of everything that was revolutionized, music, mindset, all kinds of things. So when I think about 13-year-old self and the music I was listening to, it was Zeppelin.
Yeah.
It was not, 90s music. It was not Milli Vanilli. It was Zeppelin, Stones. I mean, I was really...
Okay, so the interesting thing in my conversation with Jen about generations was she said it seems to be that generations are getting smaller and smaller. So I talked a lot about how generations are often defined by the change that happens within a generation, and that's what helps define it's the environment that you grow up in. And so, which just has made my brain turning. This has just been since this morning, by the way, so I'm still like percolating all this, which is why this is not well put together in my mind, because that communication is not very high, so thoughts to words sometimes.
That's okay.
Okay.
That's what this is meant to be.
This is meant to be. Just conversation forthright. So anyway, so she was talking, and she was just like, it seems like technology is often dependent, or generations are often dependent on technology. and technological advances. Well, I said, well, like baby boomers, when you think about, is a lot of the Great Depression, World War II. So it's a lot about external circumstances that change culture. Like culture change doesn't happen just because of technology. It often is catalyzed by that or catalyzed by other major events that are going on in the world. So anything about the Industrial Revolution totally changed cultures. Like
Productivity?
yeah, I suppose.
I'm thinking about like baby boomers in Vietnam
Mhm.
and the way that they responded.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of
There's a lot of, so it has to do with something externally, whether it's war, whether it's major technological advances, globalization, that catalyzes our culture to change. I mean, you think about, I'm even trying to think of a good example. So technology, when you think about millennials, the fact that we have lived from the time of corded phones to having a computer in your pocket. And the amount of change that has happened in our ability to create relationships. There's a lot of research about the distance between people now
yes.
because of our inability to have a face-to-face conversation. We talk a lot about that with our mentees, a lot about that in our program. And so when you think about that, it has made people a bit more egotistical, more self-centered, more self-conscious, greater identity issues. So you think about, like, a lot of those are negative side effects, but there are also a lot of positive side effects of access to information, and average IQ is going up of the nation. And so you think about, pros and cons to it. But the fact that these external circumstances are influencing culture, and then culture then influences the individual.
Right.
It's just, to me, it's just fascinating.
So I just read Parker Palmer this morning about how he was talking about growth and personal growth, self-growth, and he was 43, which so happens to be my age, when he started to realize that how ego was in the way,
Yeah.
and how he really thought he was where he thought he should be, and then all of these things kind of I would say manifested, and he came to realize that he wasn't where he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I think we do a lot with generational assumptions on and related to the ego, like you should be here, millennial, you should be doing this, and you, Gen Xer, should be doing this, and 43-year-old Allison, you should kind of have it together by now. And you should know your pathway, and you should know your direction, and the whole concept. And we put a lot of pressure on people to know. And I think about what is this going to look like for Haley? What's the world going to look like for an 8th grader today with the amount of pressure that we put on them to multitask, to know their direction, to know what they're going to do, to know their purpose, all of those things. It's a lot of pressure because we have instant access.
Yeah.
And instant access should mean knowledge, when living sometimes is the only way to get that.
Yeah, that's good. I think there's a lot of pressure on people in general, and I still, because I'm in this phase of life where I'm like, I don't know what I want to do with my life.
Which is so good!
Which is so good, but also, so I had a conversation with one of my professors for my undergrad. She advised my thesis. She was my mentor professor. I got reconnected with her. We had coffee yesterday afternoon. It was so wonderful. Or Wednesday afternoon, so 2 days ago. And so I was saying that, and she's like, well, what are your passions? Like, as we're talking about, she's really like encouraging me to apply for a PhD program. So she's like, well, what are your curiosities? What questions do you have about the world? So she's asking me all these things, and I'm like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. And
yes, but those are strengths questions.
They
that
are.
You ask.
I know. But it was so funny, the statement she came back when I said, I don't know what I want to do with my life. She said, Tess, you are doing things with your life. Like you. And so I think there is so much pressure to come up with this one end of, in order for me to be successful, I have my one great contribution to the world. And it must be this, and it must fit into a box. I was asked all throughout my life growing up, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Mm-hmm.
As if it was an end destination, then when I get there, I will be fulfilled, I will be satisfied, the world will be complete because I have fulfilled my purpose and destiny. But I'm coming into this I guess coming to this place where I'm realizing more and more that that is not how life works.
It is not.
That there is not this one, and I know it's like simple, and I could divorce myself from that and easily say I know that's not how life works, but I'm actually having to recover from a world growing up where I was asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And when I don't have a clear-cut doctor, teacher, lawyer, whatever, that I have to explain in rationale who I am and what I do, because people don't understand it.
We're always evolving, and we do not lend ourselves the grace to let that happen.
Yeah.
So my generation, it was, you'll be an accountant, you'll go to Lincoln School of Commerce, you'll be married, you'll have 2.5 kids. It was very much assumed.
White picket fence.
And all of those things. And I just had this conversation with my friend Erin last night. I feel grateful that my life fell apart when it did. Because otherwise I would be really, really in that it's supposed to look like this. It has to look like this. This is what I've been told should be. And then I think about how much we talk about how we don't want students to feel that way. And yet here we are, grown-ups, falling into that trap all the time.
Yeah.
If we don't do our own self-work and give ourselves the grace to say, I'm still evolving, I'm still learning, I still make epic mistakes, and am humbled and realize I do not have all the answers, I do not have it all together, then I'm still evolving. It's those, it's totally growth mindset, but it's those moments of sheer struggle and getting knocked right on your tush that you figure out who you are.
Yeah.
And so it could be I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm having these new revelations that I might have a different path, or this path could look like this. That's how we all should live every single day.
It just is sitting in stress because futuristic
I
is
hear
33 for me, so anytime I think about tomorrow, it's like black hole. Like that's how my life works. Sometimes when I just think about strengths. And so I think that's such when we think about like balconies and basements of strengths, which we've talked about, I think, a bit on here, I think that's such a basement of context, and that is my number one, and I can't turn it off. I
Hope you're listening, Sean.
I dictate so much of my future based on my past experience. And it's such a gift when it comes to strengths, but when it comes to my personal life, it's really difficult.
Yes.
So like, I have never been married. So in my future, I can't ever dream about that concept because it's never, like I've never walked through that before, you know. It's so difficult, I feel like, in terms of just thinking about the future. Because like owning a house. I grew up and my parents own their own house, so I feel like that is a more realistic assumption for what my future could be because I have some sort of context to lean back on, some sort of history to reference.
So I mentioned Sean because here is my senior who is just driven, motivated, so excited about the future, but he can get caught in what I feel like is a paralysis. He's just like, I don't know this land before me. And he gets really, really nervous about it because what am I going to do? I don't know. I've never experienced this before. And for me, context is very low. I think it's 31-ish, 32. I'm like, well, I don't know. We'll figure it out as we go. But also an understanding of, at 43, thought I knew it. I had a plan. I had a scholarship to Colorado State. That's where I was going. That's what I was doing. It was done. That was it. And that's where I was headed. And then life happened. And I changed my plans. And then I had to deal with that change. And because of that change, I had the best education in the world at Dillon University. I loved it. The people that were part of that are still part of my life. It shaped me. A lot of other things happened that I could have seen as absolute disaster. But when I look back, and the thing is, and we talked about last night during growth mindset, when you're in the failure, you never see it as growth.
Yeah.
It's just the worst swamp, horrible feeling. Like, I'm never going to get out of this. But that's where we grow the most.
Yeah. It's called growing pains.
Yes.
That's what every child goes through when they're growing. It hurts to grow because it stretches you and moves you. And that's good. When I think about having strengths-based conversations with my mentee.
Yes, I was just thinking that.
All I try and do is affirm who she is and her talents and strengths. I've never asked her, besides I think the introduction questions that in the mentor handbook that have it, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because I feel like that's such a confining question. And I want her to see that her talents. Take it out of the mentor handbook. I feel like I just want her to know and understand that her talents can be used in so many different ways, in so many different spheres of influence and industries in the future, that I wish there had been. And I had great people in my life, awesome mentors in my life, but that was such and because of my unique strengths, it caused paralysis for me, and it does.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I've just disappointed everyone that has ever invested in me, because I'm not becoming who I said at that point I wanted to become. But I didn't know who I wanted to be when I was that point.
Like, you were doing awesome.
I know. So, and it's not like, and that's a false mindset.
But it's a context thing.
Yeah.
Because you made the statement in the past.
But also a generational thing.
Yes.
That this was what everyone asked me, because my generation is the generation of opportunity. My parents wanted to make ends meet, settle down. They're of your generation, so they, a little older, but they wanted, their success to them was a steady job that they would never be laid off from, a home, and 2.5 kids. And that was it. And so for them, they put a lot of, not pressure, but a lot of, this is what we want you to become, anything you want to be in your life. Like, pursue your passion, because they didn't feel like they had the opportunity to do so.
So this is going to be a great question that we can take back to Jen. I believe that parenting has evolved. So, and I've had some great conversations with my girlfriends about, I want to know my kids. And I am not going to fault my parents at all here, but it was different. Yeah. It was not I want to know who you are as a person. It was more, I want you to act like this and do the right thing and get this done. And I think there's been an evolution in parenting in the way that we truly, I want to know my kids. And I feel very fortunate that I do. I mean, I want to know them as humans and people. I want to know not what they want to be, but who they want to be.
Yeah.
And I want to be open to understand that that could change and evolve all the time. And that's okay, that it can change and evolve. So I'm thinking maybe we should change that question, what do you want to be when you grow up, to who do you want to be? And you can revisit that every year.
Yeah.
You can revisit that conversation. But when I think about how parenting has changed, I think the generation I grew up in, parents had a job to do, and it was raising us. To do the job, family, 2.5 kids, good home. And now I think parenting has become, how can I know the best of you? And how can I encourage that? Because we've come a long way, I think, in the way that we know and understand. There was just a great piece that Gallup released from Brandon Besteed about, there was a reference to Sir Ken Robinson, and about getting away from standardized testing. And we're finally moving in a direction where we are saying, this does not confine you. This doesn't define you. This doesn't establish exactly who you are. Because if you look at some research, the most creative, successful people were not always good students. They weren't.
And it's hard because at least I grew up in that generation of standardized testing, and we were taught to the test. We weren't taught the practices. We were taught how to take a test well.
And if you're a good test taker like me, you did great and you were considered gifted. When was I applying that? I mean, really? Was I applying that learning in a gifted sort of way? No, I test well. So when what did you do? What were your standardized tests? Like, we did the Iowa Test of Basic Skills, I think was one of them.
Oh yeah, we did that too.
I'd love for us to look back. Do you have any of your scores and stuff like that?
I'm sure I could find that. My mom keeps everything.
Let's find out. Let's find out what kind of standardized tests we did and if they're still doing them.
The Iowa Basics.
Yeah.
Was that what they were called?
The Iowa Test of Basic Skills.
That's what I
We
had.
called them the Iowa Basics.
ITBS, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Do they still do those?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gosh,
Well,
my
my
kids.
kids.
I think they do. I'll double check. I'll ask my mom.
And then we can encourage mentors to get those surveys. This is really good. let's get better with our mentor training handbook and the questions that we have in there. And let's encourage the I like, you like to be an annual thing.
Yeah.
And look back and say, wow, well, last year I thought I loved crafts and this year I don't. And let that be okay.
Yeah.
And guide those more towards the evolution of the person versus the definition that you have to know. We talked about that recently. There's an activity that I encourage the trainers to do on a training webinar. It's called Brain Breaks and Activities. So if you are a coordinator and a trainer, you can go to the playbook. And we talked about this. One of the activities that I learned, and I can't remember who taught it, it was probably Mary Shika at IMP. You have 3 index cards. Your first index card has your name on it. Your second index card is a title that you have in your life. Okay? So, trainer, mom, sister, friend, those would be titles that I have today. The third index card, a role or a title you thought you would have when you were a kid. And mine would have been Dallas Cowboy cheerleader, actress, lawyer, and I believed it. I was like, I will. That's possible for me. And then it gives such reflection, and we encourage this in a mentor activity in training to think about, no, you did not know what you were going to know when you were a 5th grader. And we can't put that kind of pressure on ourselves as mentors or on our mentees.
Yeah.
That we could say, if when we look, and the hope for that activity is reflection. As a mentor, which we're supposed to have it kind of together. As a mentor, did you know as a 7th grader what a title that you have today was going to be? What did you assume about yourself?
Yeah.
What did you
think?
That activity is a good one.
I love that. And so I actually want to challenge some of our listeners to think about that question. And specifically, like what did you think you wanted to be when you grew up? And so I asked, I work with young adults at my church, and I asked them this because we were doing, we just got out of a sermon series not too long ago about calling and discernment, and like vocation. And so one of the icebreaker questions I had just to lead out our time together was like, when you were young, what did you say you wanted to be when you grew up? And the indicators of talent were incredible. So then I was reflecting on what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to be the first female president of the United States.
No doubt. Still possible.
still possible this way.
Let it be
hold
said.
it out.
Well, I would vote for you.
And then I also want to ask.
You and Nagina could run on the same ticket.
We could. Oh, we totally could. And then I wanted to ask people, what were expectations that were put on you when you were young? And have you done anything in your adult life, whether it's intentional or non-intentional, to combat those expectations? So your parenting style, whether it was intentional or non-intentional, both of them, I think, you parented very differently as a reaction to the way your parents parented you.
Yes.
So what kind of expectations? So this whole process I'm going through of this one end destination of I have succeeded in life when I have this one position and that'll be everything. Whatever that might be, I don't even know. I have been through a major process of trying to react to that and combat it intentionally and unintentionally because that was put on me. So I mentor a very specific way with Sakariana because I don't want her to think that that's what she has to do in life. So what were expectations put on you when you were young, and have you intentionally or unintentionally done anything? What have you done in your life to kind of combat that?
This is, okay, so connectedness. This morning, I had a conversation about self-deception. And how willing are you to lie to yourself? How long do you lie to yourself? How often do you lie to yourself? It was a great conversation, and I thought, I don't know that I've ever written that phrase down. But I love that we talked about this today, unintentionally. We had no idea what we were going to talk about.
Yep.
And how it really helps us understand, think about everything that's happened in our world in the last, let's just look at the last 6 months. There's a lot to be said about pressure, self-deception, confusion about I must have a direction.
Yeah.
Flippy-floppy happens a lot, and I think flippy-floppy gets a really negative tone because fake news, whatever, when actually there is something to be said about changing your mind
Yeah.
or rethinking your position, that we've lost the integrity about that. I've reconsidered my approach. I've reconsidered, I think all the times as a mom, the things that I have said to my kids that are like, this is how it is. And then, now I'm like, sorry. It's not. Or I say, this is how it is for them, and then I act. Golden rule. Had to make a phone call yesterday and apologize for doing something to someone that I cannot stand happening to me. And I had to make a phone call and just say, I am an idiot. I'm sorry. I actually, in the moment that it was happening, went, oh, you just did what you said you don't want to have done to you. What we learned in kindergarten, sometimes we forget a lot. So I think we covered some very, very good topics, Tess, with very little structure.
We had absolutely no idea about what we were going to talk about.
So a couple things I'm going to send out. Let's send out a balcony basement worksheet. I'm going to send the Parker Palmer article. It's such a good one. I'd like for you to send me what that generational piece was so that we can, maybe you can self-identify, listeners.
What generation?
What generation? If you'd like to choose a different one, you can. I say you can. And then I think we need to talk a little bit about, we'd love to get your feedback on the assumptions about what are you going to be and how that tied in. I'm going to send a link to the activity, but you'll give me some better language on how we talk about those expectations that were put upon us. And then I'm going to ask the question to everyone, who do you want to be? To ponder that. It does not have to be a job title or a life title, but who do you want to be? One of the greatest activities I did when I was getting my CSBE in strengths was to write a mission statement and establish my own core values. I keep it in my notebook. It's part of me all the time, and I hadn't looked at it in a while, and I just went back to it this week. And those things remain true. What my core values are, my support circle, the people that are on my board of directors, those things really matter. And I think looking back at that reminds me not what I want to be or what I want to accomplish, but who I want to be at the end of the day.
That's good. It reminds me, I'll send you a link to a video. That might be a great video to end with, but knowing your why makes your what more impactful. Think about the who do you want to be comes from your purpose, comes from your why, versus what do you want to be comes from your what. And so there's this great comedian, Michael J., and he gives this illustration where in the video, this man, he asks him to sing Amazing Grace. He's a choral director. So he sings it, he has a beautiful voice, and then he says, sing it as if your uncle just got out of prison and you've been after you've been shot in the back, and it's like you have all the hope in the world, and man, does he sing it. But it's because the first time he knew what he was singing, the second time he knew why he was singing it.
Just had this conversation about Know Your Why with Erin last night. Oops. Perfect. Ty, everything happens for a reason, synchronicity.
Connectedness.
Yeah, just a little bit. So I think this is a great start for us to think about the spring and the seasons and why we have to give ourselves some grace to evolve. This is a good time for growth.
These are big questions, so thanks for
They are.
Thanks for
Boy,
listening.
once I think we're so heavy, like, well, we're very personal that time, we're going to lighten it up, then we should.
Then we're like, oh, go deeper. Laura, let's talk about.
So the next one, maybe what we'll talk about is what our favorite shows are. Why did I not know about Parks and Rec?
Oh my gosh, you didn't know what Parks
I mean,
and
I
Rec?
know about it.
I'm the one who told you to watch it.
I think, Hannah, 50 people have, but you guys, so I limit myself to 2 episodes at night. It puts me in a very peaceful, happy place. Ron Swanson is the funniest.
I told you.
Have you seen the episode where he's like forced to eat a banana?
Yeah.
Oh. And then the one I loved the
love
most was the kid who like totally goes crazy on Halloween and
Oh,
ruins
yeah.
the statue.
Pacitis.
And then I don't know what the name. Yes, and I don't know what the name is of. Is it Andy?
Yes.
They make him a fake FBI agent.
Oh,
And
Burt
he-
Macklin.
And he comes in and he just throws stuff around. I was laughing so hard. I mean, I could not quit laughing. And all I have to do now to lighten myself up is think about him coming in throwing things, and that kid just laughing.
And it's like
Oh.
female sunglasses. You
Yes.
yes. To be burnt back like FBI agent. Oh, it's so good.
You guys, I am sorry it took me so
I was gonna
long.
say you're like 4 years late.
I'm sorry.
I saw the finale live.
I'm here, you guys. I'm finally, the hipster me has finally caught
It's
up.
not very hipster-esque
No,
to be
it's
on the
not
back
very,
end.
it isn't, but it's really, really funny.
It's the best.
It really
Anyway,
is.
next time, that's a good one. We'll talk about our favorite shows.
We'll lighten it up.
And how that relates to strength, just like our favorite song.
All right.
Thanks for watching.